Let me take you back to the start. My name is Marcy, and I've been married to Michael for almost 20 years. We met in college, fell hard and fast, got married a few years after graduation, and had Jamie shortly after that. We were the typical suburban family. Michael worked in sales, I managed a local grocery store, and weekends were for soccer games and family barbecues. That particular November morning was supposed to be like any other. I dropped Jamie off at school. He was in his sophomore year and already talking about colleges, scholarships, the whole deal. I was heading to work, but first decided to check our bank accounts. We'd been saving for Jamie's college in a separate account, something we both promised to contribute to regularly. Michael had been a bit secretive lately, saying he was working on a big deal that would benefit all of us. I trusted him, maybe too much. So, there I was, sitting in the car outside the store before my shift, logging into our online banking. What I saw, or rather, didn't see, hit me like a ton of bricks. The balance was zero. Not low, zero. Panic set in first, then confusion. I dialed Michael immediately. Michael, where's the money in Jamie's college fund? My voice was more of a whisper, scared of the answer. What? Babe, calm down. What money are you talking about? His voice had that irritatingly calm tone that always signaled trouble. Marcy, I haven't touched it. Maybe there's some mistake with the bank. Check again. I logged in again, hoping to see a different number. But nothing changed. No mistake, it's all gone. What the hell is going on? Look, I don't know, okay? I'll sort it out. Just go to work, and we'll talk later. He hung up before I could argue further. But I couldn't let it go. I called in sick, turned the car around, and drove straight to the bank. The manager, a nice woman named Janice who knew us personally, pulled up the records. The color drained from her face as she turned the screen toward me. There have been transfers, large ones, to various accounts over the past few years. All authorized by Michael. I stormed out of the bank, drove home, and waited for Michael. When he walked through the door, the look on his face told me he knew he was caught. Marcy, before you say anything. Save it, Michael. Years? You've been stealing from our son for years? My voice was loud enough to shake the pictures on the walls. Stealing? No, I was investing it. In a business, for us. It was supposed to be a surprise. A surprise? You surprise someone with a birthday party, not by draining our son's future. How could you do this to us? I was yelling now, each word sharp and bitter. He started to say something, but stopped when he saw the look on my face. He knew this was different, this was serious. I need to think. I can't even look at you right now. I walked away, my mind swirling with betrayal, anger, and the terrifying question of how we were going to afford Jamie's college now. The next morning, my mind was still racing. Michael was already at the kitchen table when I walked in, his mother, Gloria, sitting beside him with a cup of coffee in her hands. The air was thick with tension, and I could tell this wasn't going to be an easy conversation. Michael, I want every penny put back into Jamie's account today, I said, my voice steady but firm. Gloria scoffed, rolling her eyes. Oh, please, Marcy, don't be so dramatic. Michael was only trying to help the family. I turned to her, shocked by her dismissal. Dramatic? It's our son's future we're talking about, Gloria. How can you just sit there and defend him? And besides, Gloria added, it's about time Jamie learned to stand on his own 2 feet. Why should he rely on us to pay for his education? I stared at them, dumbfounded. So, you're saying our promise to our son means nothing? That we should just let him fend for himself? Gloria shook her head. Look at you, making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm not going to stand here and be called hysterical for caring about our son's future, I shot back, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Michael sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, Marcy, I think it's best if we just cool off. We're obviously not going to agree on this. No, we're not, I agreed, my mind made up. I want a divorce, Michael. The room went silent. Even Gloria stopped her tutaying. A divorce? Over this? Marcy, you need to think about this more clearly, Michael said, his voice low. I've never been more clear about anything. You took our son's future away, and you expect me to just accept it? No, I can't and I won't. And I want the house in return for all the money you spent. That's my final decision. Michael laughed, a cruel sound that filled the room. You think you can just take everything? I'll fight you for the house. I'll fight you for every damn thing in that divorce court. I could feel Gloria's eyes on me, her disdain palpable. But I was beyond caring what she thought. Fine. Fight all you want. But I'm done here. Come on, Jamie, we're leaving. I called out to my son, who had been waiting in his room, probably overhearing everything. As Jamie and I gathered our things, Gloria's voice followed us. You're making a mistake, Marcy. You'll see. You'll come crawling back. I didn't even turn around. With every step towards the door, I felt a small piece of my old life fall away, but I also felt a strange sense of freedom. Jamie and I got into the car, and I drove us to my parents' house. We were together, and that's what mattered. A week had barely passed when Michael and his mother, Gloria, decided to storm into my parents' house like they owned the place. I was in the kitchen, helping Mom with dinner, when I heard the front door slam open. There they stood, Michael looking smug and Gloria red-faced with anger. We've hired the best lawyers, Marcy, Michael announced as if he was declaring war. And they're going to prove that my mother funded the purchase of our house. So, you might want to reconsider your demands, unless you want to lose everything. Gloria stepped forward, jabbing a finger in my direction. Yeah, and you better just forget about the money Michael took. Accept the divorce and the house split 50-50, or we'll make sure you and your son end up with nothing. Listen here, Michael, I shot back, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside. I was the one who made the initial payment on that house. We both know that. Your mother's claim doesn't change the truth. Gloria's face turned an even brighter shade of red. Lies. My money bought that house, and we're going to prove it. When we're done with you, you'll be begging on the streets. Michael nodded, backing up his mother's venomous words. It's time you face reality, Marcy. You and your son will be out of that house before you know it. My mother, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up. You have no right to come into our home and speak to my daughter that way. Get out, now. But Gloria wasn't done. She scoffed and turned her rage towards me again. You think you're smart, huh? Well, let me tell you something, young lady. It's not just about the house. You're going to lose everything because of your stubbornness. That was when my father stepped up, his presence towering over both Michael and Gloria. I think you've said enough. Both of you, get out of my house now, or I'll throw you out myself. They hesitated, Michael's arrogance fading as he met my father's unwavering gaze. Gloria tugged at his arm, muttering something under her breath as they turned to leave. Once they were gone, the house fell silent except for the sound of my racing heart. My hands were shaking, and I could feel tears threatening to spill over. Later that same day, after dinner had been cleared and we were all trying to find some normalcy, Jamie spoke up. He had been quiet throughout the meal, lost in thought. Mom, I remembered something weird, he began, looking unsure. A couple of weeks ago, I saw Dad and Aunt Linda at the mall. They were in the jewelry store. My heart sank. Linda had been my best friend since high school. What were they doing there? I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. They were picking out jewelry. Aunt Linda said it was a gift for you. Jamie's voice trailed off, his expression confused. A gift for me? I repeated, feeling a mix of hope and suspicion. But he never gave me any jewelry. Yeah, and that's what's weird. They were laughing and looked really close. Aunt Linda even told me to keep it a surprise. Jamie frowned, clearly troubled by the memory. My mind was racing. None of this made sense. Why would Michael buy jewelry with Linda and not give it to me? And after today's confrontation, everything felt even more suspicious. I need to get to the bottom of this, I said more to myself than to anyone else. I'm going to hire a private detective. I need to know what's going on. I could feel my resolve hardening. If Michael was cheating on me with my best friend, I had to know the truth. A couple of weeks later, I got a call from the detective I'd hired. His voice was grave as he asked me to come to his office to discuss his findings. My stomach churned the entire drive over. When I arrived, he handed me a thick envelope. "Mrs. Harper, I'm sorry to say, the news isn't good," he started, and from there, he laid it all out. The detective had followed Michael and Linda, taken photos, and even got receipts from their purchases, including an expensive necklace that certainly never made its way to my neck. "Your husband and Mrs. Linda have been having an affair. I'm very sorry." The drive home was a blur. When I finally got back to my parents' house, I found Mom and Dad in the living room. I told them everything, showing them the photos and receipts. The shock on their faces mirrored the hollow feeling inside me. "Oh, Marcy, I'm so sorry," Mom said, her voice breaking as she came over to hug me. "That woman has been in our home, shared our meals. How could she?" "I can't believe Linda would do this to me," I whispered, feeling a tear roll down my cheek. "All these years, she's been lying to me, to all of us." Jamie came into the room then, hearing the last part. "Mom, are you okay? What happened?" I wiped my eyes and managed a small smile for him. "It's going to be okay, honey. We just found out something upsetting about Dad and Linda, but we'll get through this. We're together, and that's what counts." That night, as I lay in bed, the betrayal gnawed at me. Michael and Linda had deceived me, stolen from me, and broken my trust. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I would fight back, for my son and for the life I deserved. The next morning, I called Linda and invited her to chat. 2 hours later, I sat across from Linda at the small cafe where we used to meet for our girls' chats, the irony of the situation not lost on me. She seemed oblivious to the storm brewing inside me, smiling as she sipped her coffee. "So, how's Jamie doing, huh? Must be getting ready for college soon," Linda asked, her voice light and breezy. I clenched my jaw, staring straight at her. "Actually, Jamie's not doing great. He's been robbed by his father's mistress." Her smile faltered, and she set down her cup, a flash of guilt crossing her face. "Marcy, what are you talking about?" "I know about you and Michael, Linda. I've seen the proof." I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. Her face drained of color, her eyes dropping to the table. "Marcy, I can explain," she stammered, fidgeting with the new ring on her finger. I pointed at her ring sharply. "That ring you're wearing? It was bought with money meant for Jamie's education. Money that Michael took from our life savings." Linda's eyes filled with tears, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't know, Marcy. He told me he was getting a divorce, that you two were practically done." I scoffed, the anger and betrayal churning inside me. "And you believed him? After all these years, you just took his word and didn't think to ask me? To think about Jamie?" She wiped at her eyes, nodding slowly. "He said he would leave you the house and everything in it. He told me he made enough money to cover it all and that he wanted to leave with dignity." "That's a lie, Linda. He's left us with nothing. There's another woman, too, someone from his work. Did you know about her?" The words were like venom, but they needed to be said. Linda shook her head, her face crumpling as she began to sob. "No, I didn't know. I'm so sorry, Marcy. I've been so stupid." For a moment, I just watched her cry, the years of friendship battling with the raw, fresh wound of her betrayal. Then, slowly, I felt my anger start to subside, replaced by a weary sadness. "Look, Linda. I don't know if we can ever go back to how things were. But I appreciate you being honest with me now. She took a deep breath, nodding as she pulled off the ring and slid it across the table. "I'll give you everything back. The jewelry, the car he bought me. It's the least I can do. It won't cover everything. The money's gone, and Jamie's future is up in the air. But it's a start." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on us. Then Linda looked up, her eyes red but resolute. "Let me help, Marcy. Let's figure this out together. For what it's worth, I want to make things right." We spent the next hour talking, not about the past, but about what we could do moving forward. Linda handed me the keys to the car Michael had bought her, along with a bag containing the jewelry. "I'll do whatever it takes, Marcy. I owe you that much." The morning after my heart-to-heart with Linda, my phone buzzed early. It was Linda again, sounding more urgent than ever. "Marcy, you're not going to believe this. Michael's company is throwing a big bash for his promotion tonight. It's at that fancy place downtown. Everyone will be there, including all the big bosses." That evening, we arrived at the restaurant, a sleek, modern place filled with Michael's colleagues in high spirits. I spotted Michael, laughing and clinking glasses, the picture of success. Seeing him like that, so carefree, fueled my resolve. Linda nudged me. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." Before I could second-guess myself, I stepped forward just as Michael caught sight of me. His smile vanished, replaced by a scowl. "What the hell are you doing here, Marcy? You need to leave. Now." His attempt to intimidate me in front of his peers only made me stronger. "Actually, I'm here to congratulate you, Michael. Mind if I borrow the spotlight for a moment?" His confusion was palpable as he hesitated. His boss, Mr. Carlson, noticing the exchange, gestured for me to continue. "Please, let's hear what Marcy has to say." With all eyes on me, I moved towards the front where a projector was set up for presentations. "Thank you, Mr. Carlson." The murmurs began as I clicked the remote, and images flashed on screen, photos of Michael and the financial director, cozy and compromising. The crowd gasped, and whispers filled the air. Not only has Michael been unfaithful to his family, but he's also been stealing from the company. Here are the financial records to prove it. The next slides showed documents, clear as day, detailing the fraud Michael and his mistress had committed. The room erupted into chaos. Michael tried to protest, his face turning red. "This is nonsense. She's just a scorned woman." But Mr. Carlson, who had been examining the documents closely, silenced him with a raise of his hand. "Enough, Michael. If these documents are real, you've not only betrayed your family, but also this company." He turned to the financial director, who was now as pale as a ghost. "And you, Jessica, will need to explain a lot. Security will escort you both out until we sort this out. Consider yourselves suspended, effective immediately." Michael looked like he'd been slapped, his eyes darting around the room, finding no allies. He glanced at me, fury and disbelief in his eyes. But I wasn't done yet. "I trusted you, Michael. More than that, I loved you. We built a life together, a family. And you threw it all away. I hope it was worth it." With those final words, I walked away, Linda at my side, her hand squeezing mine in support. The last thing I heard was Mr. Carlson calling for calm as we exited the building. After Michael and his mistress were fired, they had to return all the stolen money to avoid a lawsuit, a small victory in the grand scheme, but a victory nonetheless. Now, I was bracing myself for the biggest fight yet, the divorce and the battle for our house. I sat there with my lawyer, papers neatly stacked in front of us. Michael and his lawyer were across the room, looking less confident than usual. Gloria sat right behind him, her eyes shooting daggers across the room at me. As the judge entered, everyone rose, the room steeped in formality. "Please be seated," the judge commanded, and the session began. My lawyer presented the case succinctly. "Your Honor, we have clear evidence of Mr. Harper's infidelities and misuse of the couple's joint finances. We have bank records, photographic evidence, and testimonies confirming that Mr. Harper diverted family funds to support extramarital affairs. The courtroom was silent, all eyes on us as we presented each piece of evidence. Michael's face grew paler with every document displayed. Then it was Gloria's turn. She stood, almost trembling with fury. "Your Honor, this is all lies. My son is a good man. It's Marcy who drove him to do what he did. Besides, the house they lived in was bought with my money." Her voice was shrill, desperate. I clenched my fists under the table, trying to maintain composure. "Mrs. Harper, do you have any proof of your claims about the house?" the judge asked, his tone skeptical. "Well, I don't have the papers here, but it's true," she stammered. My lawyer then stepped up, handing a stack of documents to the judge. "Your Honor, these are the bank statements and mortgage payments clearly showing that it was, in fact, Marcy who made the initial down payment and subsequent mortgage payments from her personal account." The judge nodded, examining the documents carefully. Michael whispered something to his lawyer, a look of defeat settling over him. Then, the unthinkable happened. Gloria, unable to contain herself, stood up and shouted, "This is all your fault, Marcy. If you'd been a better wife, my son wouldn't have needed other women." The courtroom erupted into murmurs. The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Mrs. Harper, one more outburst like that and I will have you removed from this courtroom." Gloria sank back into her seat, muttering under her breath. After reviewing everything, the judge finally spoke. "Having considered all the evidence presented, it is clear that Mr. Harper has not only been unfaithful but has also significantly mismanaged marital funds. Therefore, the court rules in favor of Mrs. Harper. The house will remain under her ownership, Mr. Harper will return 50% of the misused funds, and additional compensation for emotional distress will be awarded to Mrs. Harper." Michael looked like he had been punched in the gut, his head hanging low. Outside the courtroom, I took a deep breath of free air. It was over. The lies, the deceit, the years of hidden betrayal, finally out in the open and judged accordingly. Jamie had been there, in the courtroom, seen it all. His father's and grandmother's disgraceful behavior left an indelible mark on him. It was after the trial, on a quiet evening at home, when he came to me, his decision weighing heavily on his young shoulders. "Mom, I can't see Dad anymore. Not after everything. I don't think I want to talk to Grandma Gloria either." Jamie's voice was firm, resolute even, but I could see the pain flickering behind his eyes. I pulled him into a hug, my heart aching for him. "It's okay, Jamie. You do what you feel is right for you. I'm here, no matter what." In the weeks that followed, the idea of remaining in the house that was once a symbol of our family's unity felt more and more impossible. I made the decision to sell it, to give Jamie and myself a true fresh start. We chose a smaller, cozier place not far from the college Jamie hoped to attend, a new beginning within reach of his future. Michael's downfall was steep and rapid. His career was shattered, his reputation in tatters. The last I heard, he was barely scraping by, relying on odd jobs and his mother's pension after the hefty sum he had to return to us. One evening, while Jamie and I were unpacking boxes in our new living room, he looked up from a book he'd just shelved. "Mom, do you ever feel bad for Dad?" His question caught me off guard, a simple query filled with complex emotions. I paused, considering my words carefully. "Jamie, I feel sad about how things turned out." "But feeling bad for him? He made his choices, honey. We all have to live with the results of what we do. What's important is that we try to do better, be better." Jamie nodded, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "I want to be nothing like him, Mom. And you won't be. You're your own person, with your own choices to make." I ruffled his hair, proud of the young man he was becoming. Life slowly found a new rhythm, our days filled with work, school, and the occasional movie night in our snug living room. I continued my job at the grocery store, the normalcy of work a welcome anchor. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, our new home grew around us like the garden we tended together, slowly, with care, and a lot of love. Reflecting one evening over a cup of tea, I realized that despite the trials, the heartaches, and the upheaval, we had emerged stronger. I had fought for my son's future and my own peace of mind, and won.